I have a question for Minister Chester. Star of the South is an offshore wind project off your electorate in Gippsland that involves at least $8 billion in investment and around 2,000 direct construction jobs. Seafarers in Victoria, like myself, have got the skills to build this project, and we want to do it. The project could provide almost 20% of Victoria's power and make a big step in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. But all these jobs and investment are being held up because several years after the company approached the government, we still don't have legislation to allow it to get built. There are offshore wind projects off Newcastle and West Australia that are also being held up. Minister Chester, when will your government put the offshore clean energy infrastructure bill to Parliament and allow this project to go ahead?
I will put this to Darren Chester, but Mark Butler, to you first. What's the challenge here? Why can't we move forward with projects like this? What's the legislative challenge?
Well, there's some legislative challenges around offshore wind. I don't understand why the government hasn't dealt with them. They're just pretty straightforward legislative proposals to regulate the building of offshore wind farms in Commonwealth waters. They've been in the in tray of Minister Taylor for quite a deal of time, and they should just be progressed. But this is a broader challenge. We don't have any energy policy in this country now that the renewable energy target has finished, the 2020 renewable energy target. And that's why the Reserve Bank said that last year in 2019, well before COVID, renewable energy investment dropped by 50%. It's dropped another 50% this year because investors don't have the sort of confidence that Mike was talking about. They need these long-term targets. And when Darren says we don't know what the economic impact will be, I urge him to read the CSIRO report last year, our preeminent scientific agency, that modelled net zero emissions by 2050 and said, compared to the pathway Scott Morrison has us on now, there would be better economic growth and jobs, lower power prices and higher wages. There's a race underway for this transformation of the global economy that's happening in energy, in the electrification of transport, cleaner ways of manufacturing core products like steel and aluminium. We should be winning the race, but instead this lack of policy from Scott Morrison is like a ball and chain around the nation's ankle and means we're losing, not winning.
Darren Chester, this particular project is tipped to create some 2,000 jobs in the construction phase, hundreds of long-term jobs. Do you want to see it up and running? Obviously, those jobs could go to many people in your electorate.
Well, short answer is yes. I personally think the project's got a great deal of merit, but I mean, Mark would have a lot more credibility talking about emissions targets if Labor had one for 2030. I mean, they can't even agree on the 2030 target. Now they're talking about 2050. We've got Joel Fitzgibbon going absolutely freelance, running the policy from the Hunter, and now Mark's telling us what we should be doing in 2050, and he can't even agree on 2030 his own party.
With respect, we are going to get to that in a moment. I do want to ask for your position on Star of the South. What are you doing to actually get this project and all of the jobs associated with it up and running?
Well, in terms of Star of the South, and I've met with proponents a few times over the last couple of years when they first put the project to me, and the only concern that I've raised to them directly as a local member of Parliament was making sure that we had some conversation with the commercial fishing sector based in the region, which is also very important in terms of the wild fish catch to Victorian markets. And I understand that conversation with the commercial fishing sector has been going very productively in my electorate. But in terms of the broader question around legislation, I'm quite happy to follow that up on behalf of your viewer. But I think the project has a great deal of merit. I think wind turbines offshore is a better place for them than on land in many cases where they can become quite divisive amongst communities. I think the offshore asset is one, particularly on our coast. I know your viewers will all be aware that Gippsland is a beautiful every day of the year, but occasionally the wind blows just a little bit off the 90 Mile beach.